right? Whereas in the US, it's such a big deal that, oh, you're an amateur and then you're turning pro and this and that, right? Like there's like this big, kind of like celebration around that almost, like it's and everywhere else it's just the fight, in Europe you can fight pro one weekend and then you go back and you fight pads the next weekend, and those guys just get experience, so for one of our athletic commissions in Colorado, thankfully, shout out to the athletic director here, Tony Cummings, for allowing that and sanctioning that.
Okay, so Sean, I want to start with the World Games qualifier. It's happening
Cool.
on March 10th through the 13th in Denver.
Yep.
So it's good for you because you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to travel, right? You can wake up in your bed and go to the event. 4 days,
Yep.
phenomenal striking on display. Why is this the most significant event in USA Muay Thai history?
Cool, man. Yeah, that's a great question. I love that you're leading off with this. It's the biggest for a couple different reasons. Let's look at it from this first perspective, where it's a pro-am tournament. You have guys like Asa Tenpao, who was ranked in Glory, fought in Glory. He's fought on the USA team before. He's also, he's now fighting MMA for Titan FC. You have guys like Richard Abraham, who also fought for Glory on there. You have a ton of these killer ladies on the roster as well. There are not many athletic commissions in the US that allow pro-am events. There are a lot of other countries in the world that allow that, which is why these guys are able to get so much experience, because most other countries, pro and am only define the type of fight and not the fighter, right? Whereas in the US, it's such a big deal that, oh, you're an amateur and then you're turning pro and this and that, right? Like there's like this big, kind of like celebration around that almost, like it's and everywhere else it's just the fight, in Europe you can fight pro one weekend and then you go back and you fight pads the next weekend, and those guys just get experience, so for one of our athletic commissions in Colorado, thankfully, shout out to the athletic director here, Tony Cummings, for allowing that and sanctioning that. We get to have the highest level amateurs and the highest level pros compete in this, to see who's going to represent Team USA in the World Games next summer. I think a lot of people too, just with the thinking over here, it's like, oh, well, these guys are pros, they're going to beat the amateurs. And that's really not the case, man. There are a lot of amateurs here in the US that have 30, 40, 50 fights. In my opinion, at least for Muay Thai and kickboxing, it's almost easier to be more active as an amateur here. There's more opportunity. You turn pro and you see these guys going from fighting 10 times a year to maybe 2 or 3 times a year at the most, and just not staying as active as they were. So this tournament's going to have a lot of high level amateurs and a lot of really good pros in it. And, we're going to figure out whoever wins that tournament is going to go represent the USA. I think the other part that is really significant for this is that the World Games is basically the Olympics for all the sports that don't have a medaled slot in the Olympics yet. So we know that Muay Thai was fully recognized by the International Olympic Committee, so they have full Olympic recognition. They're just basically waiting on a medaled slot in the Olympic Games, right? So we need a sport to fall out, or the IOC to stop recognizing a sport, basically. And then when that happens, hopefully Muay Thai can take that sport's place, and then it's in the Olympics. So until then, it'll be in the World Games, which is still every 4 years. And then fortunately this year, the US is going to be hosting the World Games. And since we are hosting the World Games, we get an athlete for every weight class to represent in the sports. So that is why we're having the World Games qualifier here.
Yeah, Colorado always being very progressive in every way, shape, and form. And I believe they will start implementing open scoring in MMA fights over there
Yep.
starting this year, right? What do you think the impact of that will be?
I think we'll see. I think it's the best way to go about it is to try it. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big believer in data and watching trends and seeing what works and what doesn't work instead of just speculating. So I think the best thing for us to do is to try it and to see how it affects the sport positively or negatively. And and then I think we go from there. And I hope some other commissions kind of take notice of what's happening here in Colorado, if they follow suit, you know. For a long time, commissions have just been almost kind of like a good old boys club, you know, and they go by their old rules and not change, you know, to see, you know, Tony in Colorado shaking things up like this with things like open scoring. Man, it's awesome. I think this is really important. I think this is how we progress the sport, you know, and we push it to more mainstream. It's I think, you know, we're doing a really good job of that recently, but this is how we make it more mainstream. You know, so these are the steps that have to be taken. So in terms of impact, you know, I'm excited to start using it here. I think it has some unique things still. You know, there's a lot of kind of conceptions right now of what open scoring will do. A lot of people think, well, it takes away the suspense of a fight if people know what the score is. That feels ridiculous to me a little bit. You know, they also think that people may coast in the third round if they're up 2 rounds. You know what I'm saying? You know, in my opinion, you know, if my fighter's up 2 rounds, they did their job already, you know, like they're winning the fight, you know. It's in my opinion, it's kind of like two dogs, and if one dog has the bone, right, it's the other dog's job to get the bone, right? I got the bone already. You need to come get it from me, you know. So I think it'll still make for an exciting fight. That other fighter's down 2-0. He or she has to go for the finish, you know, and the other fighter can choose to engage or not engage. There's rules against not engaging, you know, timidity is in the rules. And I also think, you know, there's bonus structures, especially like in the UFC in place that if you're not fighting in the third round, you're never going to get a performance bonus and you're robbing yourself of the chance to get $50,000 extra. So those, I think, kind of like myths or opinions on open scoring, I think are going to be very quickly erased when we see it put into place.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see what happens with open scoring. I like it. I like that they're trying something different, and you know you gotta do it on the regional level and test it out, so you could use it at the highest level, right? I feel like that's the process of it. Or are they gonna consider using it in the UFC right away? Do you think so?
You know, I would agree with you. I think the smart thing for them to do would be to have it on the regional level first. And, you know, I think as with everything new, there's going to be things that are shown that maybe there's some hiccups or some wrinkles involved with it, right? So let's use it on the regional scene. Let's iron it out. You know, let's figure out what the kind of the holes or the wrinkles are in the process. And then when things get tightened up, and if it's like well received, then let's look at implementing it at the higher level, you know. Um, that would be my opinion. I think that would be the best way to kind of like implement it into the sport overall and at the bigger stage. So yeah, I would be excited to see it happen that way.
Switching gears, Lumpinee Stadium, long considered the mecca of Muay Thai. What does that venue mean to you?
Well, that's a good question, you know, but you know, the old one
Yeah.
was the historical one, you know, and man, there's so much history in that stadium, so many amazing fights that happened there, you know, and really so many people just think of Muay Thai when they think of Lumpinee Stadium. You know, I think when they made the new stadium and moved it, you know, and some regulations, and of course COVID too, you know, like so many things went into play there that it really changed it, you know. So the name is the same, but I think a lot of other things surrounding the stadium have changed quite a bit, you know, and you know, we're seeing that now. You know, and then I think with the evolving kind of rules and regulations, even in Muay Thai in Thailand, that are happening right now too. You know, they're trying to push out gambling in the stadiums and stuff like that. Man, it's a new era, you know, and that can be for better or for worse. That is, you know, kind of remains to be seen. But with every sport, with everything, man, like change is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? There's so many people, and you know, even myself, when I first heard it, I was like, man, that's crazy. You know, like new stadium, whatever it is. You know, we'll talk about it in a second too, with MMA even coming in there. But change is inevitable, and I think if you want to be on the forefront of anything and be at the top of it, you need to be ready and willing to accept change. You have to be ready to adapt and you have to be ready to go with it, you know. So that's my philosophy on it. I'm excited to see what comes next. um yeah, the only constant is change.
Yeah, yeah, evolution. You know, change, evolution. We need it continuously in combat sports. And yeah, fight promotion. They're gonna start putting on shows inside of Lumpinee. It's gonna be the first time in history they're gonna have MMA fights, and it's kind of crazy because MMA was illegal at one point in Thailand because it was considered bad for the image of Muay Thai, but now it's gonna be in the mecca of Muay Thai. Well, considered, right, the new stadium.
Right.
What are your thoughts on MMA in Lumpinee, and what will this do for the sport in Thailand?
Yeah, man, just saying that almost feels weird, MMA and Lumpinee Stadium. You're like, whoa, that's it's like those two things aren't supposed to be in the same sentence. But like I said, man, change is good. At the end of the day, these things are businesses just like everything else. The stadiums have to make money, they have to have a way to generate revenue. I think you could have seen this coming if you pay attention to Muay Thai as the sport has started to evolve over the last couple of years. You see like these entertainment Muay Thai shows come up, like Muay Hardcore or Max Muay Thai, or Super Champ, where they're fighting shorter fights, 3-round fights. They're the action is highly encouraged there. And they really kind of took like a hard left turn away from like the traditional 5-round stadium fights. um, so I think this was coming. I think this was inevitable. Man, I've been wanting to see MMA become more prevalent in Thailand for a long time, just because we know, the sheer amount of fighters that are over there. And I love seeing Muay Thai transition into MMA. I think it's a really good base for it. I would love to see more ties at the higher levels of the sport. So I'm hoping that this is the door that opens that, and we start to get a little bit more interest. Obviously, there's a good amount of money in MMA as compared to most Muay Thai. So I'm hoping that overall it's going to benefit, the country of Thailand and the boxers that are over there. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, you mentioned Muay Hardcore and a couple other promotions. They're starting to utilize this hybrid. I don't know if you would call it rule set, but it's Muay Thai with MMA gloves. One championship has it with a super series. I love it personally. I think it's probably, if you don't like the groundwork in MMA, the best thing to watch is the super series in one championship. What about you?
Yeah, and like I would say maybe like even as recent as like 5 or 6 years ago, the argument always for a casual watching MMA was like, oh, well, they're going to the ground and they're grappling and they're holding each other down there, right? And everyone's like, okay, well, go watch Muay Thai or kickboxing. And then people are like, well, what is that weird thing they're wearing on their head in Muay Thai? And what's that annoying music that they're playing in the background? And so like now you have this hybrid as a result of that, of it looks like MMA because of the gloves, but you have world class strikers, and it's Muay Thai rule set, so they can't grapple on the ground. And so I think that was just basically a response of what people were asking for. You know what I'm saying? So I like it. I think it changes the game a lot. The glove difference, we saw that when these fights first started to happen. People were still using, I would say, kind of traditional Muay Thai defense with 4-ounce gloves, and they were just getting wrecked, through the guard. There's just so much less coverage with those 4-ounce gloves, and it forced people to adapt really quickly. I like that though, man. I think that makes people better. I think it evolves the sport. In my mind, it's very similar to like when the Ties went over to Glory, and they had to adjust to that rule set of 3 rounds, no clinching, body kicks. They can land on the arms, and they don't score in kickboxing. It took them a little bit to figure it out. But once they did, then you had Petch and Sitachai become the champs over there. They evolved very quickly to that rule set, and then they ended up dominating. So I like seeing this stuff. I like seeing these evolutions. I think it just grows the sport, and the more eyes that we can get on combat sports overall, the better it is. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just good for the sport in all facets, and it has kind of like this trickle down effect. If you want people to watch Muay Thai, they need to see MMA too. You know what I'm saying? And then they need to hear the words Muay Thai on the MMA broadcast, and then they go look that up, and then then they start to follow Muay Thai along the way. So that's how we're going to get exposure in that sport. I think everything needs to work kind of hand in hand.
You're a coach at Easton. Who have been the
Mhm.
fighters you've been working with these days?
Man, so currently, I'm in kind of a unique position because I have basically two stables of fighters. I have my amateur Muay Thai guys train from Easton, and I have about 20 of those, who are active on the local and the national circuit. Like I said earlier, I'm a big believer for the most part in keeping my guys amateur for a long time, just because there's more opportunities in the amateur circuit. You can go to tournaments, the Muay Thai tournaments here, 3 or 4 a year, and they can rack up 10 or 11 fights in a year. So I have a lot of amateur Muay Thai fighters, and then on the other side, I have my pro MMA guys. So Boyan Velichkovic, who is signed with Octagon MMA now over in Czech Republic. He just fought for the title for them in December. He took a short notice fight to fight David Kozma, who's been their longtime champ over there. He came up short in that fight, but man, the fans love that one. Octagon loved that one, and he's found a really great new home over there with them. So we're looking to have kind of like a March time return for him to go back over there and fight. That's going to be his fourth fight with Octagon, I believe. So they're keeping him really busy, which is awesome too. Um, I have Muhammad Naimov from Tajikistan. He is fighting February 18th for Titan FC. He's got the featherweight title fight coming up against Ali Al Kasi. I believe he's from Jordan. I want to say. He was in the UFC. He fought Tony Kelly, and he fought who was his second fight? I can't remember. He lost he fought Erwin Rivera from Sanford, and lost a close split decision to him. So he went over to UAE Warriors after that, and he won. And so now he's fighting Muhammad for the featherweight title fight on February 18th. So that's going to be a good fight. I'm really looking forward to that one. Muhammad is super talented. He's young still, so we've spent a lot of time working just kind of everything related to the fight game, instead of just kind of the X's and O's of fighting, everything that goes with fighting, the weight cut, fight IQ, pacing in fights, training outside of fight camps. These are the things you need to build that solid foundation to be able to last or thrive on the next level of this sport. So we've spent a lot of time working on that stuff. So yeah, he's on the books for February 18th. I have also Arut Pagosian, who is Armenian. He is coming off of a really good win at Fury FC a couple months ago. He is now, I believe, 8-3, and we are looking at a couple opportunities for him coming up. He's right on the doorstep for a contender series, or maybe PFL Challengers, which is coming out now, something like that. So we're looking at potential opportunities for him. Mallory Martin, who just came off that great fight with Cheyenne Vlismus. She's taking a little time just to heal up, but she wants to get back in there as soon as possible. She's excited. That was a good fight. I liked that fight. It was fun. It was good for the fans. I think they got fight of the month for UFC, or one of the contenders for it. She's got a lot more to show in the octagon. So we're excited to get another one and show some more of what she has. Shana Dobson, she took a little break this past year. Her last fight was last February. She took just some time off. We are looking at some options for her. We've had a ton of people call and ask about signing her. Bare-knuckle, Invicta, those are kind of the two that have been really pressing to get her. I personally would love to see her fight maybe a little bit of Muay Thai, but I think there's some really good fights for her in bare knuckle. There's Rachel, there's Paige, there's a couple girls in her weight class that used to fight in the UFC that I think would be really, really exciting fights. So we're kind of exploring some of those opportunities too. Who else am I working with right now? That's kind of my core group of guys right now. I have a few other ones that are maybe taking some breaks right now or focusing on some other things. Carrington Banks, who is doing a lot of coaching right now. He's helping a ton of the guys, so I'm not sure if or when he plans to fight again. If he does, I'll be with him 100%. But this last year he really transitioned to coaching and helping a lot of the guys over at Elevation. So he kind of took that role on. So I have a smaller group of MMA guys right now. But I've loved working with all of them, and we're in some really fun promotions kind of across the globe. And all of them are in slightly different stages of their career, which is really cool. That takes unique individual coaching to work with all of them on slightly different levels of where they're at. So I really enjoy that challenge.
Yeah, a phenomenal list of fighters right there, and yeah, I need to learn more about the ones that are not, not in the UFC or just about to
Yep.
hit the UFC. So yeah, I'll definitely reach out and to see if I can connect with them and talk with them.
Yeah, I'd love to get them on the show, man. They would love to come on 100%.